Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to layer paint markers to make this little cottage, and feel free to draw or paint along with me. I started out by getting my coffee and getting my little space ready. I like to clean my desk off and make everything nice. It makes me feel good and ready to start. And then I got out my acrylic paint markers, which are Arctics. I think it was the 32 sets, and one's called regular set and one's called pastel set. And then I'm just opening my sketchbook to the correct page. My sketchbook is super messy and all over the place. I just kind of draw whatever, wherever I want in this particular one, but one day I'll do a sketchbook tour. And now I put the plastic behind the drawing because I knew I was going to use alcohol marker at some point, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, I was still really new to the paint marker thing at this point, so I was kind of just making sure, I guess, that nothing went through the paper. And I started out with this clayish kind of pinky purpley color, and just trying to do the first layer to the whole drawing. And what I would do now is just do an underpainting, even another layer like underneath, an underpainting of maybe a peachy orange, kind of a bright color like that, so that it would show through any places that were not getting covered by any other colors, and it kind of leaves a cool effect, I found now after using the paint markers for a while. But as it turned out, this was my first layer, which is the blue for the roof and the clay color, and then the wood for the door, and that's what I was starting with. And then I decided to start doing highlights on the bricks, and then went in with the mid-tone brick color, or I guess they're kind of stones really, not really bricks. But either way, I wanted to make sure that I kept the pencil lines underneath because I was a little bit nervous to lose them. That was where all my detail was, and I really wanted to make sure I had that like really old brick or stone cottagey look, and I was going to put a lot of moss on them, so I just wanted to make sure I knew where everything was while I was doing the painting and nothing got covered up. Because unlike alcohol markers, if you lose it, it's gone, and I didn't want to have to redo all the bricks from where I had planned them out. So then I took this darker brown color and started doing another layer on top. At this point, I have about 2 or 3 layers of color of paint on these stones, and it's getting a little bit thicker and a little bit easier to blend because of the layers of paint are taking longer to dry. So I did find that helpful to work a little bit quickly. If you want to blend something, just kind of layer it up a little bit, and that'll give it a nice blending effect. And just take a mid-tone, a light, and a dark of whatever colors that you want, and go back and forth with them, and that will really help you to get a good blend. And I know that's something that's a problem with paint markers that some people have, so that's what I've found so far. Another tip I would say to blend them is to do the same thing, layer them up, get a little bit of paint layered on there while it's still wet. Take a wet paintbrush with water, and you can actually wet it with water and blend it a little bit with that as well, which I'll do in a future video and show you, and I found that to be very helpful. Once I had layered in the sort of clay lightest color of the stone bricks into the roof on top of the blue, I went in with these kind of reddish rusty color because I wanted to make it look rusty. I had seen one on Pinterest, a rusty little cottage roof, and I thought that looked so cute, so I wanted to put it. So this is another middle layer because I will go over top this whole thing with blue again on top of the roof to show that redness underneath and kind of give it like a, I'm thinking of antique-y effect, but that's not really the exact word I want to use, but that's the word that I have, sorry. And then I went over the stones once again with the mid-tone color, and once I had this darkness underneath, it started to show through as the shadow and the edges of the bricks that I wanted. It was giving me the effect that I wanted, and this is where I was starting to realize that it is okay to work from dark to light with the paint markers and with this type of painting in general, and it's okay, and it's all going to be okay because you can just keep going over top of it. And so that's where I started to realize that it's actually really fun and you don't have to worry about it too much, and I got less nervous, and I was like, oh, okay, I could just keep working at this. So I had gone over top the roof again with the same blue. And now I'm adding back in a little bit more red, and I'm just sort of trying to make some shingle kind of look and some mossiness, while still keeping in mind that I want to keep the shape of the roof because I liked how it was kind of turning. So I wanted to make sure I didn't lose that. So I will put some darkness in there later to show shadows. But yeah, for the layering, I would say just start out simple. Start out with the base colors that you want to portray, and then build up from there. And then you can get more and more complicated, add shadows and add lightness and highlights where you want, and just take it slow, take it easy, and have fun. And the more layers you do, the more texture and effect you're going to get. And you may not be able to mix colors with paint markers the way you would with regular paint, but by layering, there is quite a few different effects you can get, and a lot of color will show through underneath if you're light-handed. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're doing this stuff. It's really fun, and that's what I found was great about doing the layering, is that you can get so many colors to show through in little hints here and there. And I would say maybe pick a color palette, because that's one thing I'm getting used to, is to not get overwhelmed by too many color options and then add them all, and then it looks like too busy and too complicated. For example, I had done these windows because I wanted it to look warm and cozy and like there was a little fire going inside the cottage. And then I realized I didn't have that yellow or too much orange anywhere else besides the roof. So then I decided to sprinkle those colors a little bit throughout by adding little reflections from the sunset onto the grass and the roof and cottage, if that makes sense. So I just added little bits of the paint everywhere. It's pretty easy, and I wanted it to look like a sunset was happening anyways, so just something to think about as well. Something I realized after was that I should have done the grass hill that it's sitting on at the same time as I did the cottage and everything else, because again, I should have done all of the same layers at the same time. Now I'm finding myself layering a whole new part of the drawing at a different time, which is never really a place you want to be. But I don't know why I did that. I guess I was just nervous to start. And if I could have put, again, one first layer of just the underpainting of maybe a bright color, a bright warm color, that would have really unified it even more. So I just had to do like a lot of extra layers over the grass to kind of get the effect that I was looking for. But when you're trying to keep unified colors and keep the same colors running throughout the whole drawing, it's not a good practice to do half of the drawing at a different time. So I had to try really hard to remember what colors I had put throughout the house and what colors were underneath in those layers to make sure that they were showing through as well in the grass. And I did remember, so I was lucky this time, but there have been times before where I kind of messed up drawings that I haven't posted. I then decided to put some little walk-up kind of stones for the person that lives there in the cottage, and just kind of wanted to do some reflections, trying to add some more darkness and more interest in that big chunk of grass there. So that's what my solution for that was. And I'm still working on making grass effects and making it look cool in my own way. I hadn't done that many studies of grass before, so I'm still working on that this year. Grass and leaves, trying to get better at those little bits of nature that are very, very tiny in pictures, and it's hard to express them in a simple way. So that's what I'm working on personally. And I had put some black into the stones and a little bit in the grass, so then I decided to bring it back up into the house and put a little bit on the roof for the shingle kind of things as well. And I did decide to do the grass a little bit cooler on sort of one side and warmer on the other side to show where the sunset is shining, and some little reflections of the sun there. So I took that yellow once again and put it into the grass. And once I was done with all of the paint and felt happy with the way that it looked and went as far as I could go with all the layers and everything, I decided to do a background of alcohol marker, because I did that in my last painting and I thought it looked cool. And then I really messed up because I touched the edge of the house with the alcohol marker, and Luckily, I had this perfect pink color that I could do clouds with, and that wasn't my original plan, but I think it looks really cool in the end, because then I got a little brave and I was like, let me put some light pink and a little bit of like a lavendery color, and so I made a sunset kind of sky, which I don't usually do clouds, so that was also a new fun thing, and this whole thing was like a big experiment, and I thought I was just kind of trying things out. And then I took my Muji pen and just did whatever tiny details I couldn't get with the brush tip of the paint markers, just to emphasize whatever little tiny details I wanted to put in there, like a couple lines on the rocks, some separation in the stones in the house and on the wood, and of course on the shingles, and a little bit in the grass as well. And the Muji pen works quite well for that. It really works over top of the texture of the paint markers pretty good, so I was pretty impressed with that. And this is what the finished cottage illustration looks like. I hope you had fun watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!